This week is Organ Donation Week. In a few moments I'm going to be discussing the various issues with Seamus, who's here and who's waiting for a second kidney transplant, and also with Mark Murphy from the Irish Kidney Association. But first of all, our reporter Aisling Reardon has been looking into the figures around donation. Aisling.
Thanks, Keelin. Well, to start, there are 650 people in Ireland currently on the waiting list for various organ transplants. To break it down, the majority of those are waiting for kidneys, while the rest are waiting for hearts, lungs and livers. Since 2003, the number of patients on dialysis has increased every year. Now, last year there were over 200 organ transplants from 78 deceased donors. These numbers were below average. There were 32 living donors, so 32 kidney transplants were done. The good news here is that the programme, which is in its 6th year, is growing, and it looks like there'll be 50 living donors this year. Now, here in Ireland, transplants are carried out only in Dublin. Beaumont Hospital looks after kidneys and pancreas. St Vincent's looks after liver transplants, while the Mater focuses on hearts and lungs. With regards to children, the team from Beaumont goes to Temple Street to carry out kidney transplants, but when it comes to heart and lung transplants, young people have to travel from Ireland to the UK. So how does Ireland fare when it's compared to other countries? Well, we're ranked 13th in Europe for organ donations, but 10 years ago we were in the top 5. So instead of progressing, we've lost ground. Croatia, which is a similar size to Ireland, and Spain have the highest rates of donations in the world. They have sufficient infrastructure surrounding organ donations in hospitals. So what that means is that on the ground, they have dedicated and trained donor coordinators in intensive care units in hospitals. Ireland doesn't. Also, many countries have a national registry with details of willing donors, but Ireland is behind on this and doesn't have one. Finally, here in Ireland, we have informed consent, whereby people have to give their permission to give their organs. However, there is a debate whether this should be changed to an opt-out or presumed consent basis. As that debate continues, there are more ways to become a donor. There's the old reliable donor card, there's a new iPhone app called the Organ Donor e-card, and you can also get a code put on the new driving licence. Keelin.
Aisling, thank you very much indeed. Some really interesting figures there. But Seamus, I'll just start with your story. I mean, maybe if you can clarify to us why or what kind of a difference it could make to your life if there were more people willing to donate their kidneys at the moment.
It would be a fantastic opportunity. 15 years ago I had a transplant and it made a massive difference in my life. After having the transplant I was able to get back to normality, carry on my job. And I had a great 9 years, and it was fantastic to be able to live that 9 years to full mobility again. But now I'm back on dialysis for the last 6 years, and it's the whole day is taken up in relation to transportation, getting to dialysis, the fatigue after dialysis. Some days after a dialysis session you wouldn't have the energy to get off the couch for maybe an hour or two afterwards, and you have that recuperation period, and a lot of people might have that. So it's every second day you'd actually feel like, have a good day. You'd feel lagged. It'd be like jet lag, or if you ran a marathon basically after a session of dialysis.
And a new kidney would put
and a new kidney would get rid of all that. For example, because most people that would be doing dialysis now, you would be shoving roughly about 110 litres of your blood through the machine, where an average person in a normal day's function would be roughly pushing about 200 litres
over 24 hours,
a 24-hour period. So when you're doing that session of dialysis, it's very intensive and it is very, very hard on your system. You are very drained, and it affects different people in different ways. And the chances of having a transplant and getting back to normality again would be a fantastic opportunity. And
Seamus, do you know, like, where are you on the list, or what are your chances of getting a transplant?
For myself, unfortunately, I have very high antibodies which were generated from the last transplant. These things happen.
That's why the last one broke down, did it?
Exactly. Well, I got a disease in it as well. So, but I was delighted. I got 9 years out of it. Now, at the moment, the way things are, I have high antibodies. So I am going on a different way. I'm 6 years on dialysis. I'm 3 years now on home hemodialysis. So my wife now, she's fortunately offered to go forward onto a new paired programme that's done through Coventry in England. So she's doing her workup now at the moment. She's hoping to give someone else a kidney, and hopefully some other person will be paired up with myself and I will get a kidney with them. There is a 10% chance of that actually working, but it's better than nothing. You know, that's the way I look at it. At least we're trying options. Yeah. Ideally, a family member would be ideal. That would give you a 25% chance if you had a family member. If if that was
but you,
the case.
you clearly don't.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the case.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. It's a whole new strategy, if you like. Mark, if I can ask you, I mean, Aisling's figures were really interesting there, that we're actually going down. We've gone from ranking, what, 13th, but we're now 13th. We used to be in the top 5. Why? Are other countries kind of leaping ahead of us, or are we getting worse?
We're not getting worse. We're kind of stuck in a rut, you might say, at 20 donors per million of population. The other countries have spotted what Spain did, which elevated. Spain has over 35 donors per million of population. We'd be very happy to get to 30, but the Spanish identified what was wrong, and what they changed was inside their hospitals, inside their intensive care units. They put specialists, they devised the specialty of donor coordinator, and they've managed that on from there, and they've shown how you can change practice inside your intensive care unit. That is what's made the difference. That's what we'd like the minister to do, and indeed there's a general understanding that that's what the minister should do.
And is he going to? Any reaction from him on it?
He wants to improve the rates for organ donation. The irony is that transplantation is far cheaper than dialysis, so it's exceedingly cost effective. So that putting a bit of infrastructure, a bit of investment in getting ourselves off this 20 donors per million to 30 is very cost effective. But
it
it
put
doubles
people back into the workplace, I assume, rather than being out sick. And
it doubles their life expectancy as well, and it is the preferred treatment for someone who has failed kidneys by miles.
And Mark, you're talking there about, I suppose, donor coordinators within the intensive care units. What about the other issue of an opt-out donor register? So if you don't want to donate your organs, you have to tell someone. It's taken for granted that you will. Yeah,
well, this is something that the Spanish gave up on. They took in presumed consent back in the late 79. By 89, they knew that it wasn't working, that it had made no difference. Then they changed to this coordinator system, and everything changed in Spain. We know that presumed consent, a lot of countries have tried it. It is not viable, it's not practical. You cannot legislate in this area and expect the families to change their minds. You must ask a bereaved family.
That's interesting.
Their wishes.
So even if somebody had said, I am an organ donor, you will still have to confer with the family before you take the organs?
Yes, and indeed that is the practice everywhere. There is no one presuming consent in Europe. It might be on the legislation books, but it's not in practice. Nobody's at it. They've given up trying. It's not an appropriate place to actually legislate.
That's it. And Mark, can I ask you, like, what is the current situation in our intensive care units, or, you know, after a tragedy? Like, does anybody ask about organ donation?
Well, in some hospitals they definitely do. I mean, we had 78 donors last year. It's just that we know we're not identifying the amount of potential donors in the country as others do. And it is that potential that's not being tapped. It's those coordinators, it will be their job to identify the potential donors and actually manage the process from being potential donors into actual organ donors. And that's where consent is involved. Yeah. And they'd be expert at, indeed, dealing with bereaved families. It's not an easy job. I don't think I could do it.
No, it wouldn't be at all. I mean, it's the last thing anybody would have in their mind, really, if they're coping with the bereavement themselves.
Yeah. So it's a skill set that, as again, the Spanish identified. The Croatians took it up 6 years ago, and they're actually now probably ahead of Spain, a country the size of ours.
Really?
Yeah.
And what about live donors? I mean, I saw in Aisling's figures there, it's gone from 32, hopefully, to 50 this year.
Should do.
Yeah. I mean, is that something that you're working to grow as a programme?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, we were a long time arguing that there should be a living transplant programme. It came about 6 years ago, and that is wonderful. But that's only for the kidney person requiring kidneys. We have the heart, lung and liver patients who don't have that luxury as such, and indeed don't have dialysis either. So we want living transplantation of kidneys to be complementary to deceased donation, not what tends to be happening just in the figures this year. It seems to have replaced deceased donation. So no, we need the people to realise that we'll always need their willingness to donate organs. And indeed, they are 3 times more likely in their lifetime to require organs in the future and be on a list than they're ever likely to be an organ donor.
Gosh, that's interesting. There, do you have the figures? Listen, thank you very much. Very best of luck with the Organ Donor Week, and Seamus, very best of luck in actually getting a kidney. But thank you both very much for coming in this morning. Now, if you do want to get a donor card, you can text the word donor to 550, or you can get all of the information you need online. The site is www.ika.ie.